Hi friends, today we will be talking about chapter 9, the Gupta age. And in this chapter, we will be talking about majorly two topics, the post-Mauryan period and Gupta dynasty. And in the post-Mauryan period, we will be talking about the Deccan region. We will be talking about what is Deccan region, and what was the condition of Deccan. And we will be discussing about North India. What was the condition of North India during the time of post-Mauryan age? Post-Mauryan age means the ruling after, the rule after the Mauryan age, Mauryan dynasty. And after that, we will be talking about Gupta dynasty, the new dynasty after Mauryan age. We will be talking about Chandragupta I, Samudragupta, and Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Actually, Chandragupta Vikramaditya is also known as Chandragupta II. So we will be talking about the three major rulers of Gupta dynasty. And after that, we will be talking about these things. I mean, what are the speciality of administration under the Gupta dynasty? Next, we will be talking about life of the people. We will be talking about trade. What kind of trade was happening? What was the speciality of trade during the time of Gupta period? And we will be talking about religion, the situation of religion, the status of religion. And after that, we will be talking about the literature, the famous literature which originated during the time of Gupta period. And after that, we will be talking about the science, the impact of science in Gupta period, and art and architecture. Then golden age of Guptas. We will be talking about what are the speciality during the time of Gupta dynasty. And after that, the last point, we will be talking about the comparison between the Mauryan dynasty and the Gupta dynasty. So these are the things that we are going to study in this chapter. Now we will talk about post-Mauryan age. Here you can see a map which shows the Magadha Empire, the Mauryan Empire and all. We will do one thing, we will go through that. Post-Mauryan period. Actually, post-Mauryan period means the period which comes after Mauryan Empire. Now we will talk about Deccan. The most important successors of the Mauryan people in the Deccan were Shadavahanas, who ruled for nearly 300 years. Trade flourished in Shadavahana kingdom. So Shadavahana is a kind of dynasty. It is a kingdom which came after the Mauryan Empire. Most of the wealthy merchants were followers of Buddhism and gave liberal donations to the Buddhist viharas or monasteries. So Buddhist houses or Buddhist monk houses, community monks houses are known as viharas or monasteries. The Shadavahana rulers worshipped Vishnu and Shiva, but were tolerant towards Buddhism. They patronized rock-cut architecture and cave temples. Now we will talk about North India. What all things happened during the time of post-Mauryan period in North India. After the decline of Mauryan people, the state of Magadha shrank in size and lost its power. Several independent states arose in North India. These states constantly fought against themselves and left the northwestern mountain passes unguarded. Between 200 BC and 300 AD 300, Central Asian tribes such as Indo-Greek, Indo-Parthians, Shakas, and Kushanas entered India in successive waves. The foreign invasions had a number of impacts. So we will talk about Kanishka, a man called Kanishka, a personality called Kanishka, who came from a community called Kushanas. Now we will be talking about Kanishka. Kanishka, the greatest of Kushana rulers, proclaimed the beginning of the Shaka era with his accession in AD 78. The Shaka calendar, which is 78 years behind the Gregorian calendar, is still used in India. Next thing, Padaliputra declined and Purushapura or Peshawar became Kanishka's capital. The third point was Kanishka, a great patron of Buddhism, organized a Buddhist council at Kandalavana in Kashmir. At this council, Buddhism split into its major sects, Mahayana and Hinayana. Kanishka patronized the Mahayana Buddhism. Fourth point is Mahayana Buddhism introduced idol worship of Buddha. This led to the growth of Gandhara and Madura school of sculptural art. Fifth point, Gandhara school combined Greek and Roman art styles with the Indian style, while the Madura school produced images in purely Indian style. After the Central Asian invasions, Indian merchants could trade on the famous Silk Route, which began in China and ended on the Mediterranean shore of West Asia. As trade expanded, many new craft developed and trade centers like Taxila, Mathura, and Ujjain got flourished. The Indo-Greek and Kushanas issued a large number of gold, silver, and copper coins. Then the Indo-Greek, Shaka, and Kushana rulers patronized scholars in their courts. Court, C-O-U-R-T-S, courts. The Jataka tales were composed during this time. Charaga and Shushruta made significant contributions in the sphere of medicine. Contact with the Greek led to the improvement in astronomy also. So these were the specialities which happened during the time of post-modern period after the decline of Mauryan rulers. Now we will talk about Gupta dynasty. What do you mean by Gupta dynasty and what is Gupta empire? What is the speciality of Gupta dynasty? Here you can see the picture of what we call the Gupta empire, right? Yeah, it is depicted here. The Gupta dynasty. The Kushanas ruled till about AD 230. Sri Gupta, a local chief of Magadha under the Kushanas, founded the Gupta dynasty in the 3rd century AD. The dynasty reached the height of its glory in the 4th century AD under great rulers like Chandragupta I, Samudragupta, and Chandragupta Vikramaditya. So we will talk about these 3 rulers now. The first ruler is Chandragupta I. You can see the picture of Chandragupta I here. The Gupta era is believed to have begun in AD 320 when Chandragupta I ascended the throne of Magadha. Under him, Magadha again rose to prominence. Chandragupta ruled from Pataliputra. He extended his social influence from Magadha to Prayag. Now it is known as Allahabad, and Saketa means Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh. He remained in power till AD 335. The next ruler is Samudragupta. You can see the picture of Samudragupta here. Chandragupta I was succeeded by his son Samudragupta often regarded as the greatest ruler of the Gupta dynasty. We get information about Samudragupta's reign mainly from coins and inscriptions. The Allahabad pillar inscription, for example, praises Samudragupta's military achievements. He was composed in the Sanskrit language by the court poet Hrisena. So there was a poet called Hrisena along with Samudragupta. Samudragupta was a warrior, a scholar, a musician, a poet, and above all, a good ruler. He was a Hindu but was tolerant towards Buddhist and Jains. Now we will talk about Samudragupta's military campaign. What was the speciality of army, Samudragupta's military army? The Allahabad inscription bears a long list of rulers who fought against Samudragupta. Those who were defeated either had their kingdoms annexed or were forced to pay tribute. Samudragupta's direct rule extended from Bengal in the east to Delhi in the west. His indirect rule extended from northwest frontier in the west to Assam in the east and from the Himalayas in the north to Kanjipuram in the south. Actually, Kanjipuram is situated in Tamil Nadu. So, Samudragupta's empire was there till the southern part of India. So this is all about what we call Samudragupta. Now we will talk about Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Chandragupta Vikramaditya is also known as Chandragupta II. Samudragupta's son Chandragupta II ascended the throne in AD 375. He is also known as Vikramaditya. There are inscriptions about him at Udaygiri, Mathura, and Sanchi, and on the iron pillar at Maroli, Delhi. Hsien, a Chinese Buddhist pilgrim, a scholar, came to India during the reign of Chandragupta II. He described Chandragupta as a wise, just, and benevolent ruler. Now we will talk about Chandragupta Vikramaditya's achievements during his ruling time. Chandragupta Vikramaditya strengthened his position by giving his daughter in marriage to Vakataka prince of the northern Deccan. With the help of the Vakatakas, Chandragupta defeated the Shakas of Gujarat, Saurashtra, and Malwa and annexed their territories. Annexed their territories means they joined the territories into Chandragupta's empire. He thus won control over the busy port of Broch and Cambay. He made Ujjain his second capital. Under him, the Guptas reached the peak of their glory. Chandragupta II promoted trade, art, and architecture. He is said to have patronized 9 renowned scholars, poets, and artists who were called the 9 gems of or Navratna. The poet Kalidasa is said to have been one of them. In the middle of the 5th century AD, hordes of Central Asian tribes called Huns invaded the Gupta Empire and weakened it. Some of the Huns even settled in Punjab, Kashmir, and Malwa. By the 6th century AD, the Gupta Empire had broken up. So this is all about what we call Chandragupta Vikramaditya. Now we will talk about a traveler, an international Chinese traveler. His name is Hsien. Some of them call them Hsien or Hsien. Hsien's accounts. In his accounts of his experience in India, Hsien wrote about Chandragupta II and his kingdom. The capital Pataliputra had stately palaces and buildings. Roads were well maintained, safe and comfortable. Laws were simple and punishments were not too severe. The people were law-abiding and honest. However, Hsien lamented the neglect of the Buddhist places of worship at Bodh Gaya, Kushinagar, and Kapilavastu. So, Hsien is a Chinese traveler who traveled from China to all around the world. Now we will talk about administration under the Gupta Empire. So when we talk about administration under Gupta Empire, we need to talk about two things: provincial administration and local administration. Provincial administration means the state was divided into different provinces. I mean, we know that India is divided into many states and union territories, like, right? Yeah, like that. In the city, the empire of Gupta dynasty was categorized or differentiated into different provinces, like states. So we will be talking about provincial administration and local administration, the administration in villages. The Gupta rulers assumed very high sounding titles and performed Rajasuya as Ashwamedha sacrifices. The king was assisted by a council of ministers or Mantri Parishad. The ministers were highly paid officials who sometimes even led the armies during wars. In later period, they were granted land instead of cash salaries. In due course, they acquired a lot of land and thus became quite powerful. We will talk about provincial administration now. The empire was divided into provinces or bhuktis under governors called uparikas. The provinces were further divided into districts. Districts were known as Vishayas under Vishayapati. The districts were divided into villages. The Uparigas were assisted by officials called Kumaramatyas. The Kumaramatyas acted as a link between the provinces and districts. So this is all about provincial administration. Now we will talk about local administration. In local administration, a council of village elders headed by the village headman administered the village. The city was administered by a council consisting of the head of the city corporation, representatives of various guild of merchants and artisans, and the chief scribe. Scribe means translator or clerk. So this is all about the administration under Gupta dynasty. Now we will talk about the life of the people. What was the condition of living standard of common people during the time of Gupta dynasty? The main occupation of the people was agriculture. The caste system had become very rigid. The number of subcastes had come into existence. The Chandalas or untouchables lived outside the city. So caste system was there during the time of Gupta age. Now we will be talking about condition of woman. What was the condition of woman during the time? Here you can see the photo of Sati. Sati was an evil practice which was there during the time of what we call Gupta age. We will talk about that. Women were not permitted to participate in social and political activities. They were usually not given formal education. Early marriage was the accepted social norm for girls. Women were not entitled to property except in the form of jewelry or stridhan received at the time of marriage. So there were a dowry system. Dowry system was there during the time of Gupta period. Many restrictions were imposed on widows. A widow could be forced to become a sati by burning herself on the funeral pyre of her husband. Sati was there during the time of Gupta period. If husband dies, the wife will be forced to jump into that burial fire. That evil practice was known as sati. Now we will talk about the trade or business which was there during the time of Gupta period. Trade. A network of safe roads and navigable rivers connected important cities. This promoted internal trades, which in turn promoted various industries like weaving, carpentry, metallurgy, shipbuilding, and pot making. Actually, the Gupta rulers encouraged foreign trade. Indian spices, pearls, ivory, precious stones, perfumes, and textiles found ready market in distant lands. Ports on the west coast of India like Broj, Sopara, Kalyan, Calicut, and Cochin traded with West Asia, Africa, and the Mediterranean land. Tamralipti on the east coast was an important port for trade with Southeast Asia. This trade led to the spread of Sanskrit language, Indian art forms, and religions such as Hinduism, Buddhism to Southeast Asia. Overland trade linked India to Central Asia and China. This trade declined when the Huns invaded India. As a result, many cities in the Ganga Valley declined. So this is all about what we call the trade or business which happened during the time of Gupta dynasty. Now we will be talking about religion. What was the impact of religion and what was the status of religion during the time of Gupta Empire? Most Gupta coins bear images of god and goddesses. The Gupta rulers worshipped mainly Vishnu and Shiva. They performed many sacrifices. The idea of avatar or incarnation of Vishnu emerged. It was believed that whenever there is disorder in society, Vishnu appears in an animal or a human form to restore orders. The Dharma Shastras containing the Hindu social and religious rules were compiled in this period. Image worship became widespread in Hinduism. Temples were built with images of gods. Religious worship became more complex and expensive. So people slowly turned into bhakti, that is personal devotion to God without rituals and ceremonies. The Guptas were tolerant towards Buddhism and Jainism. Samudragupta even permitted the Sri Lankan ruler Meghavarman to build a monastery at Bodh Gaya. But Buddhism was on the decline. Now we will talk about Dashavadara. Dashavadara means the avatars of Vishnu. There are 10 avatars actually. First one is Matsya, fish. Next is Kurma or tortoise. Next is Varaha or boar. And the fourth one is Narasimha. Narasimha means half lion, half man. Fifth one is Vamana. Vamana means a dwarf person. Sixth one is Parashurama. Parashurama with an axe. Then seventh one is Rama. Eighth one is Krishna. Ninth one is Buddha. And tenth one is Kalki. Kalki is a man on a white horse. So these avataras are known as what? Dashavadara. These are the Dashavadas of Lord Vishnu. Now we will be talking about literature. Here you can see the picture of Kalidasa. Some of the greatest work of Sanskrit literature were composed during the Gupta period. The Gupta rulers were themselves great rulers and patrons of learning. The greatest gem of Chandragupta Vikramaditya's court was Kalidasa. He produced the famous work like Meghaduta, Kumarasambhava, and Abhignana Shakuntalam. Next is Shudraka wrote the play, and Vishagadatta wrote Mudra Rakshasa. The Panchatantra, the collection of delightful fables, were also written during this period. The Puranas, the Ramayana, and the Mahabharata, which had so far been passed down orally, were written down during this period. Now we will be talking about science, the impact of science or the status of scientific research during the time of Gupta dynasty. The Gupta period witnessed a remarkable growth of scientific knowledge. Aryabhatta, the famous mathematician and astronomer, put forward the theory that the earth rotates on its own axis and revolves around the sun. Aryabhatta understood the concept of zero and the decimal system. Another mathematician and astronomer, Varaha Mihira, wrote the Brihat Samhita, an encyclopedia of all branches of knowledge. In medicine, the science of Ayurveda reached new heights. The science of metallurgy improved to a great extent. The iron pillar at Maroli, which has not rusted yet, was cast during this period. Now, this is the photo of iron pillar actually. We will talk about the art and architecture of Gupta dynasty. The Gupta rulers patronized sculpture, architecture, and painting. The Sarnath school of art excelled in sculpture. The temples of Gupta period became models for future North Indian temples. The temple usually had a small central room called the Garbhagriha where the images was placed. The other features were carved pillars supporting a low roof and sometimes a tiered spire. The most important or the most famous temple of the Gupta period are the temples of Viogad, Sanji, and Bitragav. Most of the beautiful cave temples in Ajanta near Aurangabad were built during this period. There were beautiful mural paintings in the Ajanta caves depicting scenes from the life of the Buddha. In view of the invaluable contributions made by Guptas to our cultural heritage, it is said that the Gupta period was the golden age in our history. So we'll do one thing. We will talk about the golden empire or the golden age of Guptas. Next is golden age of Guptas. We will talk about the golden age of Guptas. The term golden age in a country's history usually describes a period of political peace and stability, economic prosperity, and cultural growth in spheres such as literature, philosophy, art, architecture, music, and scientific thought. The Gupta period saw many remarkable achievements due to which it is referred to as the golden age of Indian history. We will talk about some points regarding the golden age of Guptas. First one was the Guptas freed the country from Shaka menace and ensured peace. The second point is the merchants of the period carried on sea trade with Southeast Asia, China, and West Asia, and internal trade along a good network of roads. This is evident from a large number of gold coins and the growth of many cities in the period. Kalidasa's renowned Sanskrit plays and poems were written during the Gupta period. The epics and Dharmashastras were also compiled during this time. The foundations of Hindu temple architecture were laid during this time. The widespread worship of Vishnu and the concept of avatars began during this time. The Ajanta paintings of the Gupta period are still acclaimed the world over. The science of Ayurveda, Aryabhata's concept of zero, and the iron pillar, which has not rusted to this day, all bear testimony to the remarkable heights of attainments in the spheres of science and technology under the Guptas. Hsien wrote in glowing terms about the political stability and economic prosperity during the Gupta period. So these are considered as the golden age of Gupta's dynasty. Now we will talk about, or now we will compare the Gupta dynasty with respect to Mauryan dynasty. We will do one thing. We will make a comparison on the basis of some stanzas, some streets. First one is prevalent religious beliefs, concepts, and religious structures. Okay, in Mauryan Empire, actually mainly Buddhism and to some extent Jainism. There was no idol worship in Mauryan Empire. Concept of Dhamma was introduced in Mauryan Empire, and Buddhist stupas were built in Mauryan Empire. But when we talk about Gupta Empire, mainly Hinduism was there. Then worship of Vishnu and Shiva were there. Widespread of idol worship was there. Concept of avatar was popular during Gupta Empire, and Hindu temples were built during the Gupta dynasty. Next, we will talk about social divisions in Mauryan Empire and Gupta Empire. In Mauryan Empire, mainly the social divisions were on the basis of profession. No mention of untouchability. Untouchability was not there in Mauryan Empire. But when we talk about a Gupta Empire, mainly it was on the basis of rigid caste system. Chandalas or untouchables lived outside the city. Now we will talk about the status of women in Mauryan Empire and Gupta Empire. In Mauryan Empire, no mention of Stridhan nor the practice of Sati. Sati was not there, and even the Stridhan was also not there. But in Gupta Empire, women entitled only to Stridhan. Restrictions on women practice of Sati was there in Gupta Empire. Next is provincial governors and local administration. In Mauryan Empire, actually strict supervision and control over provincial governors were there. Then local level rural and urban officers appointed by Mauryan rulers. In other hand, in Gupta Empire, provincial governors given a lot of independence, local level rural and urban administration run by local representatives. Next is salaries to officials. Actually, in Mauryan Empire, it was mainly in cash, but in Gupta Empire, it was mainly in the form of land grants. Okay. So these were the important things that we need to consider in Gupta dynasty, or what we call the age of Gupta. So I wish I understand that, or hope you all have understood this chapter. We will meet you the very next day. Till then, take care. Goodbye.